I am Jessica, 28 years old, and the day my parents threw me onto the street with nothing but a suitcase was the exact same day my lottery ticket hit the jackpot. One moment I was sobbing at a bus stop, homeless and heartbroken. The next, I was staring at my phone in disbelief as 7 matching numbers changed my life forever. My parents thought they were teaching me a lesson about failure. Instead, they accidentally set me free right as I became a millionaire. If you are watching this from a place where you feel like everything is falling apart, drop a comment below telling me where you are from and hit subscribe. Because this story will show you how life can transform overnight when you least expect it. Growing up in the Anderson household meant one thing above all else: expectations. My parents, Martha and Robert, were not the warm and fuzzy type. Martha was a corporate attorney who measured success in billable hours and promotion cycles. Robert was a financial advisor who viewed the world through spreadsheets and investment returns. Their definition of love always seemed conditional, tied directly to achievement and status. From my earliest memories, our suburban home in Connecticut was immaculate but cold. Everything had its place, including me. My bedroom walls remained beige despite my childhood pleas for purple or teal. Art supplies were permitted only on the plastic-covered desk in the corner. My drawings were praised only when they demonstrated technical skill rather than creativity or expression. "Jessica, art is a hobby, not a career," my mother would say, usually while reviewing my report card. As if on cue, my father would add, "The Anderson name means something in this community. We have standards to uphold." By high school, the script was clear. I would major in business or law, join a prestigious firm, and continue the family tradition of practical success. But something inside me rebelled against their narrow vision. The only time I felt truly alive was in the art studio at school, where my advanced placement art teacher, Ms. Simmons, recognized something in my work that my parents never could. "You have a unique perspective, Jessica," she told me during my senior year. "Your use of color and texture communicates emotion in a way that is quite sophisticated." Those words sustained me through countless dinner table arguments about college applications. When I was accepted to Rhode Island School of Design with a partial scholarship, my parents reluctantly agreed to pay the remaining tuition, though not without making their disappointment crystal clear. "We are investing in a mistake," my father said as he signed the first tuition check. "I hope you realize that before it is too late." College became my first taste of freedom. There I met Zoe Richards, a vibrant photography major who became my closest friend. Unlike my parents, Zoe celebrated my artistic vision and encouraged me to start selling prints online during our sophomore year. "You need to stop hiding your light," she insisted, helping me photograph my work and set up a simple Etsy shop. "Your parents might not get it, but there are people who will love your work enough to pay for it." That small business grew steadily through our college years. Nothing that would make me rich, but enough to prove that my art could generate some income. When I tried sharing these small successes with my parents during holiday visits, they dismissed them entirely. "Playing store online is not a career plan," my mother said during Thanksgiving break senior year. "How much do you actually make after expenses?" "Probably minimum wage at best." After graduation, the real pressure began. While most of my classmates understood the realities of building an art career gradually, my parents expected immediate financial independence. The agreement was that I could live at home for 6 months while launching my career, but their definition of acceptable employment did not align with mine. Every interview I had for gallery positions or teaching assistantships was deemed insufficient. Every commission I received for my artwork was minimized as charity from friends. When a small local gallery included 3 of my pieces in a group show, my parents refused to attend the opening. "We do not want to encourage this phase," my mother explained, as if my entire degree and passion were merely a temporary rebellion. Meanwhile, Zoe had moved to a small apartment in Brooklyn and was building her photography portfolio. During our weekly phone calls, she became my lifeline to sanity. "Your parents are trying to control you through financial dependence," she observed during one particularly tearful call after my father had ridiculed a new series of paintings I was developing. You need an escape plan. The irony was that my online sales were actually increasing. Not enough to afford my own place in our expensive area, but enough to show potential. A curator from a respected gallery in Boston had even reached out about possibly including my work in an upcoming show featuring emerging artists. As the 6-month deadline approached, the tension at home became unbearable. Daily arguments erupted over job applications, my schedule, even the hours I kept. My mother began leaving printouts of corporate job listings on my bed. My father started calculating the cost of my continued presence, down to the electricity used by my computer. In a moment of desperation mixed with whimsy, I spent $20 on lottery tickets one afternoon. It was something I had never done before, a gesture of hopelessness more than hope. I selected numbers that held personal significance. My birthday, the date of my first art sale, the street address of my favorite gallery. Looking back, it seems ridiculous that I even bothered, but sometimes desperation leads us to strange places. What I did not know then was that those random numbers would soon collide with fate in a way that would rewrite my entire future. And that my parents' ultimate rejection would coincidentally align with the universe's most unexpected gift. The morning that changed everything started like many others in recent weeks, with the sound of my father's angry voice carrying up the stairs. It was barely 7 a.m. when he discovered I had forgotten to pay my portion of the phone bill, a new requirement he had instituted to teach me financial responsibility. "Jessica, get down here immediately," he bellowed from the kitchen. I pulled myself out of bed, already exhausted before the day had even begun. The previous night, I had stayed up late finishing a commission for a client who had found my work online, the kind of small victory my parents refused to acknowledge as legitimate work. Dragging myself downstairs in pajamas, I found both parents sitting at the kitchen island, my father clutching the phone bill like evidence in a criminal trial. My mother sipped her coffee, her expression a practiced mask of disappointment. "You are 28 years old," my father began, his voice dangerously quiet now. 28. "And you cannot even remember to pay a simple bill on time." "I was going to pay it today," I explained, reaching for the coffee pot. "The deadline is not until tomorrow." "The point," my mother interjected, setting down her mug with a sharp click, "is that responsible adults do not wait until the last minute. Responsible adults prioritize obligations." What followed was a familiar lecture about wasted potential and embarrassing choices. How my art degree had been an indulgence they regretted allowing. How my former classmates were now working at real jobs while I chased a childish dream. How I was becoming a cautionary tale rather than a source of pride. But something was different this time. The lecture did not wind down as usual. Instead, my father suddenly stood up and left the room. My mother's eyes followed him, a strange tension in her posture. "We have been patient," she said, turning back to me, more patient than most parents would be. Before I could respond, my father returned with a suitcase, my old navy blue Samsonite from college. With a theatrical gesture, he dropped it at my feet, the thud echoing in the suddenly silent kitchen. "We are done," he announced. "Your 6-month grace period ended last week. We agreed you would have a proper job by now. Since you have chosen to disregard that agreement, you can disregard our hospitality as well." My coffee mug froze halfway to my lips. "What?" "You have until noon to pack your essentials," my mother added, her voice businesslike. "Anything you cannot fit, you can arrange to collect later when you have a stable residence." The shock rendered me momentarily speechless. Despite the constant tension, despite knowing my welcome was wearing thin, I had never truly believed they would actually throw me out. Not without more warning. Not like this. "Where am I supposed to go?" I asked, my voice sounding small and foreign to my own ears. "That," my father replied coldly, "is the question you should have been asking yourself these past 6 months instead of playing artist." I looked to my mother, hoping for some softening, some recognition of the cruelty in their approach. But her eyes remained fixed on her coffee cup, unwilling to meet mine. "You can always call your cousin Amanda in Hartford," she offered, as if suggesting a lunch option. "Or perhaps one of your artistic friends has a couch." The callousness of that statement broke something in me. Tears threatened. But I refused to give them the satisfaction. Instead, I picked up the suitcase and walked back upstairs without another word. Packing became a surreal exercise in prioritizing my life into one suitcase. Clothing took precedence over art supplies. Winter items over summer. My portfolio of best work over sketchbooks. Each choice felt like another small heartbreak. As I folded clothes and tucked away essential toiletries, memories ambushed me from every corner of the room. The window seat where I had spent countless hours drawing as a teenager. The closet door where I had meticulously tracked my height until age 16. The small scuff on the wall from when I had tried to rearrange furniture during a burst of creative inspiration. This house had never truly felt like home, yet it was the only one I had known. Now even this imperfect shelter was being denied me. By 11:30, the suitcase was packed and my room looked strangely impersonal, as if I had never fully inhabited it. I took one last look before dragging the suitcase downstairs. My parents were waiting in the living room, a check laid out on the coffee table. "This is $2,000. My father explained without emotion. "Consider it startup capital for your independent life. We will not be providing further financial assistance." The formality of it all. The business-like transaction of ending parental support made the situation even more painful. I took the check without comment and tucked it into my wallet. Right next to the lottery ticket I had purchased 2 days earlier in a moment of despair. "Your house key," my mother prompted, extending her hand. I removed it from my keychain and placed it in her palm, our fingers not quite touching during the exchange. The small metal key looked insignificant considering all it represented. "I hope someday you understand this is for your own good," she added, dropping the key into her pocket. "Sometimes people need to be pushed to reach their potential." Outside, Mrs. Fletcher from next door was watering her garden. I saw her watching curiously as I emerged with my suitcase, saw the quick aversion of her eyes when she realized I had noticed her attention. The humiliation burned like acid in my chest, knowing neighborhood gossip would soon follow. At the bus stop 3 blocks away, I finally allowed myself to cry, tears flowing freely as I called Zoe. Her immediate response was everything my parents had not been: warm, concerned, and practical. "Come stay with me," she said without hesitation. "My place is tiny, but the couch is comfortable. And we will figure things out together." The bus arrived before I could fully express my gratitude. As I struggled to lift my suitcase up the steps, the driver, an older man with kind eyes, helped me without comment. Something in his gentle assistance made me cry harder, a small kindness throwing the morning's cruelty into sharper relief. Settling into a seat near the back, I stared out the window as my childhood neighborhood receded from view. My hand absently went to my wallet, fingers brushing against the lottery ticket tucked alongside the check from my parents. 2 possible futures side by side, though I had no way of knowing then how significant one of them would soon become. Zoe's Brooklyn apartment was exactly as she had described it, tiny but welcoming. The living room barely accommodated a love seat, coffee table, and her photography equipment, but compared to the chilly atmosphere of my parents' house, it felt like a sanctuary. "Home sweet home," she announced, helping me maneuver my suitcase through the narrow doorway. "It is not much, but there is always wine in the fridge and no one will criticize your life choices here." Her attempt at lightheartedness brought the first genuine smile to my face since that morning. She ordered takeout Thai food while I settled in, creating a makeshift bed on her love seat with spare blankets and pillows. "Tomorrow we will figure out next steps," she promised as we picked at pad thai and spring rolls. "My friend Laura works at a gallery in Chelsea, and they might need help with their upcoming installation. And you can stay here as long as you need." I nodded gratefully, but inside I felt hollow. The full impact of the day's events was still sinking in, the realization that I was essentially homeless at 28, both terrifying and humiliating. After dinner, while Zoe took a shower, I checked my phone notifications mindlessly, trying to distract myself from the crushing anxiety. A news alert caught my attention. Powerball jackpot hits $48 million, drawing tonight. The reminder made me think of the ticket in my wallet, purchased during a moment of desperation just 2 days earlier. On a whim, I pulled it out, studying the numbers I had selected. My birthday. July 10th, 7:10. The date of my first art sale, 23. The street address of my favorite gallery, 42, 17, and two random numbers I had added on impulse, 5, 38. I pulled up the lottery results website, expecting nothing but needing some distraction from my current reality. The drawing had happened at 8 p.m., about an hour earlier while we were eating. The first number appeared on my screen, 7. I glanced at my ticket, 7. Second number, 10. My ticket, 10. A strange feeling began to creep up my spine as I continued checking. 23, match. 42, match. 17, match. 5, match. 38, match. I stared at the screen, then at my ticket, then back at the screen. This could not be happening. This kind of thing happened to other people, strangers in news stories. Not to newly homeless artists sitting on borrowed couches. Zoe, I called out, my voice barely audible. Then louder, Zoe. She emerged from the bathroom, hair wrapped in a towel. What is wrong? Are you okay? Wordlessly, I held up my ticket and pointed to my phone screen. I think I just won the lottery. Zoe grabbed both items from my hands, comparing the numbers with increasing excitement. Oh my God, Jessica. Oh my God. These match. All of them match. While I sat frozen in shock, Zoe sprang into action. Googling how to claim lottery winnings and reading the verification procedures aloud. According to the website, I needed to sign the back of the ticket immediately and contact the Lottery Commission office. It says here the jackpot was $48 million, she read, her voice hitting an unnaturally high pitch. Lump sum option would be around $14.7 million after taxes. The numbers meant nothing to me in that moment. They were too large to comprehend, too sudden to process. Just hours earlier, I had been crying on a bus with my entire life packed in one suitcase. $2,000 representing my parents' final contribution to my existence. I need to call them, I said, reaching for my phone with trembling hands. The verification process was surreal. After providing my ticket number to the official lottery hotline, I was congratulated by a surprisingly calm customer service representative who scheduled an appointment for me to come to their office the next morning. They confirmed that I was indeed the sole winner of the jackpot. Is this really happening? I asked Zoe after hanging up. It is really happening, she confirmed, wrapping me in a fierce hug. You are a millionaire, Jess. A freaking millionaire. We stayed up most of the night, alternating between stunned silence and frenzied speculation about what this meant. Zoe suggested immediate revenge fantasies involving my parents, elaborate schemes to show up at their door in a limousine or by their house and evict them. But beneath the giddy surface conversation, a deeper realization was taking root. This money represented something far more valuable than revenge or material possessions. It represented freedom. Freedom from financial anxiety, yes. But more importantly, freedom from my parents' crushing expectations and control. As dawn broke over Brooklyn, painting Zoe's small apartment in soft pink light, I had not slept at all. Curled under a borrowed blanket on her love seat, I watched the city awakening outside the window. Somewhere in Connecticut, my parents were probably just starting their day, completely unaware that their discarded daughter had become a millionaire overnight. The morning news reported a mystery winner in the Brooklyn area, speculating about who might claim the massive jackpot. The secret knowledge tingled inside me, a powerful contrast to the powerlessness I had felt the previous morning. What are you thinking about? Zoe asked, emerging from her bedroom in rumpled pajamas. I am thinking that yesterday was both the worst and best day of my life, I replied. And I am thinking that I do not want to tell my parents. Not yet. She nodded, understanding without needing explanation. This is your moment. You get to decide who knows and when. As we prepared for my appointment at the Lottery Commission office, a strange calm settled over me. The universe had handed me an extraordinary gift precisely when I needed it most. Now I just needed to figure out how to use it wisely. The Lottery Commission office was housed in a nondescript government building in downtown Manhattan. Clutching my signed ticket in one hand and Zoe's arm with the other, I navigated the security check and elevators with the dreamlike sensation that had persisted since the previous night. A woman named Barbara greeted us in a private conference room, her practiced smile suggesting she regularly dealt with stunned lottery winners. "Congratulations, Ms. Anderson," she said, gesturing for us to take seats at a large table already occupied by two men in suits. "This is Mr. Rivera, our financial compliance officer, and Mr. Taylor from our legal department." What followed was 3 hours of the most important paperwork I had ever encountered. Forms verifying my identity, tax documents, media release options, and the critical decision between annuity payments or a lump sum. The annuity would pay out approximately $1.6 million annually for 30 years, Barbara explained. The lump sum option is roughly $14.7 million after federal and state taxes, paid all at once. Mr. Rivera walked me through the implications of both choices, explaining tax consequences and investment possibilities. The numbers swam before my eyes, too large to fully comprehend. "You do not need to decide immediately," he assured me. "Many winners consult with personal financial advisors before making this choice." "I do not have a personal financial advisor," I admitted. "Until yesterday, I did not need one." This prompted a kind smile from Barbara, who slid a folder across the table. "This contains a list of reputable financial management firms that specialize in sudden wealth. We strongly recommend consulting with one before making any major decisions." By early afternoon, I had signed the initial claim forms, opted to keep my identity private from media whenever possible, and scheduled a follow-up appointment for the following week. The ticket was now secured in the Lottery Commission's vault, and I had been given a claim number and temporary verification documents. "What happens now?" I asked Zoe as we emerged from the building into the bright afternoon sunlight. "Now," she said, squeezing my hand, "we celebrate." Modestly. "And then we get you a hotel room because as much as I love you, you're about to be way too rich for my lumpy couch." That evening, we splurged on a nice dinner, though nothing outrageously expensive. It felt important to maintain some sense of normalcy amid the extraordinary circumstances. Over pasta and wine, I began to process the practical implications of my new reality. I need clothes, I realized. Everything I own is in that one suitcase. "Shopping spree tomorrow," Zoe declared. "But first, hotel." We found a comfortable suite at a boutique hotel in Soho, a significant upgrade from Zoe's love seat, but not ostentatiously luxurious. I used my credit card, knowing I could pay it off soon, another surreal realization. The following days became a crash course in wealth management. From the list provided by the Lottery Commission, I selected 3 financial advisory firms to meet with. The first 2 felt impersonal and corporate, reminding me too much of my father's world. The third, however, was led by a woman named Samantha Powell, whose straightforward approach immediately put me at ease. "Most lottery winners are broke within 5 years," she told me bluntly during our first meeting. "My job is to make sure that does not happen to you." Samantha helped me understand the magnitude of decisions I needed to make. She explained investment strategies, tax implications, and the importance of creating clear financial boundaries, especially with family and friends. "Based on your situation," she advised after hearing about my parents, "I would recommend keeping your win private as long as possible while we establish proper structures to protect your assets." With her guidance, I chose the lump sum option, created a revocable living trust to hold the majority of my assets, established investment accounts with conservative growth strategies, and set up a separate charitable foundation for future philanthropy. "Your money should work for you," Samantha explained, generating enough income that you never need to touch the principal unless you choose to. As these financial structures took shape, I began rebuilding my life in tangible ways. The hotel suite became my temporary home base as I explored neighborhoods to potentially settle in. I replaced essential belongings, though without the shopping frenzy many might expect. Each purchase was considered intentional. The most significant early expenditure was a comfortable 2-bedroom condo in an arts-focused neighborhood in Brooklyn. At $1.2 million, It represented a substantial investment, but one that Samantha approved as reasonable for housing security. Property in New York is generally a sound investment, she noted when reviewing the purchase details. And having your own space will provide stability during this transition. The condo featured a spare bedroom I could convert into a proper art studio, with large windows providing the natural light I had always dreamed of working in. As I furnished it piece by piece, I experienced the strange contradiction of enormous wealth paired with persistent frugality from my previous life. You can afford the more expensive couch, Zoe pointed out as we browsed furniture stores. I know I can afford it, I replied. I just do not know if I want it. This internal recalibration of wants versus needs became a daily exercise. The freedom to choose based on preference rather than price was disorienting after years of financial constraint. Some days I would stare at restaurant menus, amazed that I could order anything without calculating its impact on my weekly budget. Throughout this adjustment period, I deliberately avoided contact with my parents. They had called several times after the first few days, likely wondering where I had gone after leaving Zoe's apartment. I let their calls go to voicemail, not yet ready to engage with them from my new position of financial independence. Their messages evolved from demanding to know my whereabouts to expressing concern that sounded hollow after their actions. I listened to each one but did not respond, creating space to establish my new life before dealing with that complicated relationship. 3 weeks after claiming my ticket, the funds were finally transferred to my accounts. Seeing the balance on my banking app was another surreal moment, the number seeming almost fictional in its magnitude. Take a screenshot, Samantha advised during our meeting that day. When things get overwhelming or you start to lose perspective, looking at that number can help ground you in the reality of your security. That evening, alone in my new condo with its half-assembled furniture and blank walls waiting for artwork, I allowed myself to truly absorb what had happened. In less than a month, I had gone from being kicked out of my childhood home to owning a luxury condo outright. From having my artistic pursuits dismissed as frivolous to having the financial freedom to pursue them without constraint. The irony was not lost on me that my parents, who had spent years trying to force me into financial pragmatism, had inadvertently set me free precisely when fortune had decided to smile upon me. Their rejection had coincided perfectly with my unexpected windfall, creating a clean break between my old life and new possibilities. As I unpacked art supplies in my new studio space, I felt a renewed connection to my creative purpose. No longer would financial pressure force compromises in my artistic vision. For the first time, I could create purely from inspiration rather than marketability. With this realization came the first stirrings of a plan for the inevitable confrontation with my parents. They would discover my winnings eventually, and I needed to be prepared for that moment. But first, I needed to become comfortable in my new skin, confident in my worth beyond the numbers in my bank account. 6 weeks after winning the lottery, I was settling into a new routine. My condo was fully furnished, my art studio properly equipped, and I had begun working on a new series of paintings inspired by the dramatic life transition I had experienced. Each morning, I woke naturally, without an alarm, still marveling at the luxury of owning my time completely. The carefully constructed bubble of my new life burst on a Tuesday afternoon with a text from Zoe. Your parents know. They showed up at my apartment looking for you. My stomach dropped as I read her follow-up explanation. Apparently, they had seen a small mention in the Connecticut local paper about former resident Jessica Anderson winning a major lottery prize, though I had managed to keep my name out of national news. This small hometown paper had made the connection. What did you tell them? I texted back. That I was not at liberty to discuss your whereabouts, Zoe replied. Your dad got pretty intense. Said they had a right to know where their daughter was living. The audacity was breathtaking. After throwing me out with one suitcase, they now claimed parental rights to information about my life. I knew what had changed, of course. Money changed everything. Sure enough, within an hour, my phone exploded with notifications. 6 missed calls from my mother. 4 from my father. Text messages expressing concern and asking me to please call home as soon as possible. An email with the subject line, family emergency, that, when opened, contained only a request to contact them immediately. I forwarded everything to Samantha, who had advised me to consult her before any family financial discussions. Her response was prompt and firm. "This is exactly what we prepared for," she wrote. "Remember our discussions about boundaries. You are in control of if, when, and where you engage." After careful consideration, I decided to meet them on neutral ground. A public restaurant would prevent the kind of emotional eruption my father was prone to, while allowing me to leave if necessary. I selected an upscale bistro in Manhattan, far from both their suburban comfort zone and my new neighborhood. "I will meet you at Pierre's on Thursday at 1 p.m., I texted my mother, providing the address. "Please be punctual." Her response came immediately. "We will be there, sweetheart. We have been so worried." The sudden endearment after weeks of silence said everything about their motivations. I arrived at the restaurant 20 minutes early, selecting a table in the corner that offered privacy without isolation. I had dressed carefully in a simple but expensive black dress, a subtle signal of my changed circumstances. My parents arrived 5 minutes early, looking simultaneously out of place and entitled in the elegant setting. My mother spotted me first, her face breaking into a smile that did not quite reach her eyes. "Jessica, darling," she exclaimed, approaching with arms outstretched as if the circumstances of our last meeting had been entirely different. I stood to greet them but maintained physical distance, avoiding the offered embrace. "Mother, father, thank you for coming." My father's eyes darted around the restaurant, taking in the upscale surroundings. "You are looking well," he offered, an assessment rather than a compliment. "Please sit," I indicated the chairs across from me, maintaining the formality that seemed to discomfort them. After the waiter took our orders, an awkward silence fell. My mother broke it with forced cheerfulness. "We have been so worried, Jessica. When you did not return our calls after leaving Zoe's. Well, a mother worries." "Does she?" I asked quietly. I would not know, since my mother watched silently as my father threw me out with one suitcase. My father cleared his throat. "About that situation. Perhaps we were hasty in our approach." "Hasty," I repeated, the word hanging between us. "What your father means," my mother interjected, reaching across to touch my hand, which I subtly withdrew, "is that we regret how things transpired. Family disagreements can become heated, but family remains family." "So I have heard," I replied, though my understanding was that I had exhausted your patience and financial support. That I was, as you put it, Dad, no longer welcome to disregard your hospitality. He had the grace to look momentarily uncomfortable before recovering. Emotions were running high that day. "We only wanted what was best for you, to motivate you toward success. And now that I have found success, albeit through unexpected means, you are suddenly concerned about my welfare." My mother's smile tightened. "That is unfair, Jessica. We have always wanted your success. We just disagreed about the path." The arrival of our appetizers provided a brief reprieve from the tension. As we began eating, my father shifted to what I suspected was his real agenda. "We should discuss your windfall," he said, his financial advisor tone emerging. "Lottery winners often make disastrous financial decisions without proper guidance." "I am sure they do," I agreed pleasantly. "Fortunately, I have excellent financial guidance." "From whom?" he asked sharply. "From my wealth management team at Powell Financial." My father frowned. "I have never heard of them. You should consider transferring your accounts to my firm. Family managing family money makes much more sense." And there it was, the true purpose of this reconciliation attempt. "That will not be necessary," I replied calmly. "Samantha Powell has extensive experience with sudden wealth management. Her team has already established my trust, investment portfolio, and philanthropic foundation." My parents exchanged glances, clearly not expecting me to have moved so quickly or competently. "A foundation?" my mother asked. "That seems premature. You should focus on securing your own future first. And perhaps helping family," she added, attempting subtlety and failing. "My future is quite secure," I assured her. "The foundation will focus on arts education for underprivileged youth." My father leaned forward, abandoning pretense entirely. "Jessica, We should discuss some family investments. Your mother and I have been considering early retirement, and with your new resources, we could explore some opportunities together. Perhaps a vacation property in Vermont? We could all use it. The breathtaking entitlement of his suggestion left me momentarily speechless. These were the same people who had discarded me weeks earlier, now planning how to spend my money. I will not be making any family investments, I stated firmly. Nor will I be funding your retirement or purchasing shared property. My father's face darkened. After everything we have done for you, this is incredibly selfish. We paid for your education, supported you for years while you pursued this art hobby. You did, I acknowledged. And then you threw me out when I failed to meet your expectations. You cannot discard someone and then claim family obligation when it benefits you. We never discarded you, my mother protested, her voice rising slightly. We were trying to motivate you. By making me homeless? With no warning and one suitcase? You are twisting what happened, my father insisted, anger replacing his earlier salesman approach. Am I? You calculated the electricity my computer used. You left job listings on my bed. You gave me a departure check like terminating an employee. The main courses arrived, though I had lost my appetite entirely. My father stabbed at his steak while continuing to press his case. Families support each other, Jessica. That is what they do. Your good fortune should benefit those who raised you. My good fortune arrived the same day you withdrew all support, I reminded him. The universe has quite a sense of timing. So you won the lottery and now you are too good for your family? He demanded, voice rising enough that nearby diners glanced our way. No, I replied, keeping my voice measured. I simply recognize that our relationship was conditional before, and it remains conditional now. The only difference is that the conditions have changed. My mother dabbed at her eyes with her napkin, the tears seeming to appear on cue. I cannot believe how cold you have become. This money has changed you. I have changed, I agreed. But not because of money. Because I finally understand my own worth is not determined by your approval or financial support. My father's anger finally boiled over. This is ridiculous. After everything we sacrificed for you, you owe us more than this. I placed my napkin beside my barely touched meal and stood up. I do not owe you access to my lottery winnings. I have paid for lunch. Enjoy the rest of your meal. Jessica, my mother called as I turned to leave. Do not walk away from this family. I paused, looking back at them. You defined the terms of our relationship when you put my belongings in a suitcase. I am simply honoring your decision. Walking out of that restaurant felt like stepping through a doorway into genuine independence. The confrontation had been painful but necessary. A formal ending to patterns established throughout my childhood. Back in my condo that evening, I called Dr. Harper, the therapist I had begun seeing to help navigate the psychological aspects of sudden wealth. I met with my parents today, I told her when she answered. How did that go? She asked. Exactly as expected, I replied. They wanted access to my money, not reconciliation. And how do you feel about that? I considered the question carefully. Sad but relieved. Sad that our relationship is so transactional, but relieved to have confirmation that I made the right decision in establishing boundaries. That is a very healthy perspective, she affirmed. Remember that setting boundaries is not about punishment, but about self-protection. As I ended the call, I realized I felt lighter than I had in weeks. The confrontation I had dreaded was behind me, and while it had confirmed my parents' worst qualities, it had also validated my decision to create distance. Moving forward would be about healing myself rather than seeking revenge or approval. 6 months after winning the lottery, my life had transformed in ways both expected and surprising. The most visible change was my living situation. I had sold the first condo and purchased a larger property in the same neighborhood, a former industrial space converted into a combined living area and art studio. With soaring ceilings, abundant natural light, and enough wall space to display multiple large canvases, it was the working environment I had always dreamed of. Less visible but more significant was my professional evolution. With financial pressure removed, my artwork had flourished in unexpected ways. I was experimenting with larger formats, mixed media, and themes that had always interested me but seemed too risky or time-consuming before. Your recent work shows remarkable freedom, noted Eleanor, the gallery owner who had given me my first significant break. There is confidence in these brushstrokes that was only hinted at before. That conversation led to a surprising opportunity. Eleanor offered me partnership in a new gallery venture focused on emerging artists, rather than simply showing my own work. I could help curate exhibits featuring talented artists still struggling for recognition. You understand both the creative and business sides now, she explained. And you have the resources to take risks on artists you believe in. The Anderson Wright Gallery opened 4 months later in a renovated warehouse space not far from my loft. We dedicated the space to showcasing emerging artists, particularly those from disadvantaged backgrounds. The opening night featured works from 5 painters and 3 sculptors who had never before been featured in a Manhattan gallery. This is exactly what the New York art scene needs, raved an influential critic in his review. Fresh perspectives unconstrained by commercial pressures, selected by curators who prioritize authenticity over marketability. The success of the gallery brought me a different kind of satisfaction than simply selling my own work. Watching other artists gain recognition and confidence reminded me of my own journey and gave purpose to my unexpected wealth. My personal life had evolved as well. The initial months after winning had been isolating, with constant anxiety about who to trust and how much to reveal about my changed circumstances. Zoe remained my closest confidant, but I was hesitant to form new relationships. People will only want you for your money, my father had warned during our restaurant confrontation, one of the few statements that had lingered with me. To my surprise, wealth had acted as a filter rather than a magnet. I became adept at identifying those who saw me as a bank account rather than a person. Casual mentions of my gallery investment, rather than lottery winnings, helped screen initial interactions, allowing genuine connections to develop organically. One such connection was with Daniel, a children's book illustrator I had known peripherally in college. We reconnected at an industry event where he was promoting his latest publication, Jessica Anderson. He greeted me with genuine warmth. I heard you opened a gallery. That is fantastic. Throughout our conversation, he never once mentioned money or investments, focusing instead on artistic approaches and mutual acquaintances from our college days. When he suggested coffee the following week, I agreed without my usual hesitation. Our friendship developed gradually over shared interests and values. Daniel treated me exactly as he had in college, neither impressed by my current success nor resentful of it. His own modest career was built on talent and determination, creating whimsical illustrations that delighted children and parents alike. I could never afford gallery space in Manhattan, he admitted during one conversation about the art world. But I love what you are doing with your platform, featuring artists who might otherwise be overlooked. Would you be interested in a children's art exhibition? I asked impulsively. Something interactive that introduces young visitors to visual storytelling? His enthusiastic response led to our first collaborative project, an exhibition called Stories Without Words that transformed part of the gallery into a creative space for children. The project's success deepened our professional relationship, which gradually evolved into something more personal. Dating with extreme wealth proved complicated. I had been on several disappointing dates before meeting Daniel, encounters that quickly revealed the other person's financial motivations. With Daniel, I never felt evaluated for my bank account. When he insisted on paying for meals or suggested affordable activities, I recognized the integrity behind his choices. 6 months into our relationship, as we walked through Central Park on a crisp fall afternoon, I finally felt comfortable enough to tell him the full truth. The gallery was not my first investment, I explained. I won the lottery last year. That is how I afforded the initial space. He looked surprised but not shocked. That explains some things I had wondered about. Like how a new gallery could afford that location. Does it change how you see me? I asked, voicing my persistent fear. He considered the question seriously. It explains circumstances. But circumstances are not who you are. I am dating Jessica, who loves obscure foreign films and gets paint in her hair, not Jessica the lottery winner. His response cemented a trust that had been building between us, allowing our relationship to deepen with genuine understanding. While my personal and professional lives flourished, my relationship with my parents remained complicated. After our confrontational lunch, communication had dwindled to occasional text messages, primarily from my mother. Their attempts at reconciliation always carried financial undercurrents, thinly veiled references to family support or investment opportunities. "Your father has found an excellent vacation property," one typical message read. "Perfect for family gatherings. We should discuss how to make this work for everyone." I maintained polite but firm boundaries, never engaging with financial suggestions while leaving the door open for genuine relationship repair. "I would be happy to meet for dinner next time you are in the city," I would respond. Just the three of us, no business discussions. They rarely accepted these invitations, confirming that their interest remained primarily financial. Dr. Harper helped me process the ongoing disappointment without letting it overshadow my growing happiness in other areas. "Family wounds heal slowly," she reminded me during our now-monthly sessions. "Sometimes they do not heal completely, and that is okay. Your job is to build a fulfilling life regardless." A milestone moment came when a major art publication featured the Anderson Wright Gallery in their Spaces to Watch section, highlighting our commitment to diverse artists and innovative exhibitions. The accompanying profile included my journey from art school graduate to gallery co-owner, thankfully omitting any mention of lottery winnings at my request. "Anderson brings both artistic sensitivity and business acumen to the venture," the article stated, creating opportunities for talents who might otherwise remain undiscovered in New York's competitive art scene. The professional recognition felt particularly meaningful, validating my contributions beyond financial investment. When Daniel framed the article and presented it as a gift, I was moved by the gesture and what it represented. Acknowledgement of my work rather than my wealth. "This is who you are," he said, pointing to the article. "Someone who creates space for beauty and new voices. The money just gave you a bigger canvas." As the one-year anniversary of my lottery win approached, I found myself reflecting on the extraordinary journey. From homelessness to homeownership. From rejection to recognition. From isolation to meaningful connection. The transformation went far beyond financial circumstances, touching every aspect of my identity and purpose. The money had provided security and opportunity, certainly. But the true gifts had come from the freedom to discover my authentic self, unconstrained by others' expectations or financial necessity. That discovery process continued daily, each choice and relationship adding another dimension to my understanding of who Jessica Anderson truly was, beyond both the struggling artist and the lottery winner. The one-year anniversary of being kicked out of my parents' house arrived on a perfect spring morning. I woke early, watching sunrise paint my loft in gold light, and took a moment to marvel at the symmetry. Exactly 1 year earlier, I had awakened to anger and ultimatums. Today, I awakened to peace and possibility. My weekly therapy sessions with Dr. Harper had gradually shifted from crisis management to deeper healing work. We had spent months unpacking childhood patterns, examining how my parents' conditional approval had shaped my self-perception, and developing healthier frameworks for decision-making. The lottery provided financial freedom, she noted during a particularly insightful session, but the real work has been claiming your emotional freedom. That emotional freedom had not come easily. There were still nights when I woke from dreams of standing at that bus stop, homeless and hopeless. Days when imposter syndrome whispered that I did not deserve my good fortune or success. Moments when a critical inner voice, suspiciously similar to my father's, questioned my choices. Healing is not linear, Dr. Harper reminded me often. The goal is not to eliminate difficult feelings, but to develop a healthier relationship with them. That relationship had improved dramatically over months of consistent work. I had learned to recognize my parents' voices in my head and consciously replace them with my own. I had practiced self-compassion when old insecurities surfaced. Most importantly, I had stopped measuring my worth through external validation. My relationship with Daniel had deepened into something I had never experienced before. Partnership based on mutual respect and genuine understanding. Unlike previous relationships shadowed by my financial insecurity or more recently by my financial excess, this connection felt balanced despite our different circumstances. I think what works between us, Daniel reflected one evening as we cooked dinner together in my loft, is that we both value the same things: creativity, authenticity, making something meaningful. And you have never asked me to buy you a yacht, I added, only half joking. He laughed, flicking water from the sink in my direction. A small pontoon boat would be fine. This easy humor about wealth differences had developed gradually, replacing the awkwardness of early dating when he would insist on paying for meals he could barely afford, and I would pretend not to notice his financial calculations. My contact with my parents had settled into a predictable pattern. Every few weeks, my mother would text with carefully worded updates about their lives or questions about mine, never directly mentioning money, but often alluding to family obligations. My responses remained cordial but maintained clear boundaries. The emotional breakthrough came unexpectedly during a routine Sunday morning phone call with my mother, a new tradition we had cautiously established. Usually, these conversations remained superficial, avoiding both conflict and genuine connection. But this particular Sunday, something shifted. "The azaleas you planted in the backyard when you were 16 are blooming," she mentioned casually. "They always make me think of you." The simple observation, free from manipulation or agenda, opened something in me. I had forgotten about those. "You let me choose the colors." "Pink and white," she confirmed. "You were so determined to do the planting yourself." Covered in dirt, but so proud. For 20 minutes, we reminisced about small, forgotten moments like this one. Not the achievements or disappointments that had dominated our relationship, but simple shared experiences without evaluation. For the first time in years, perhaps ever, we were just mother and daughter exchanging memories. As the conversation ended, she said something that suggested her own reflection process. "I was not always the mother you needed, Jessica. I realize that now." It was not exactly an apology, but it was an acknowledgement. The closest she had ever come to recognizing how their parenting had affected me. "Thank you for saying that," I replied, emotion tightening my throat. This small opening did not magically repair our relationship, but it created space for something more authentic to potentially develop. My father remained more distant, unwilling or unable to engage without financial subtext, but even there a subtle shift had occurred. His attempts to access my wealth had become less frequent, perhaps finally accepting that my boundaries were firm. The Anderson Wright Gallery thrived beyond our initial expectations, becoming known for discovering extraordinary talents overlooked by established institutions. 6 months after opening, we launched a scholarship program for young artists from low-income backgrounds, providing materials, mentorship, and eventually exhibition opportunities. Meeting the first scholarship recipients reminded me powerfully of my younger self, their nervous excitement and creative passion reflecting my own early dreams. A young woman named Alicia, particularly talented with color and composition, approached me after the welcome reception. "I almost gave up last year," she confessed. "My parents wanted me to study nursing instead. They said art would leave me broke." "I heard similar things," I told her. "What made you continue?" "I just could not imagine doing anything else," she replied with a conviction I recognized intimately, even if it meant struggling. Watching these young artists develop became one of my greatest joys, their growth representing possibilities that extended far beyond my own journey. Each time a scholarship student sold their first piece or received recognition, I felt a satisfaction deeper than any personal achievement. My own artwork evolved as well, though in unexpected ways. Rather than producing more, I found myself creating more selectively, each piece representing a significant emotional exploration rather than commercial consideration. This more deliberate approach led to a small but powerful solo exhibition titled Thresholds, exploring moments of life transformation. Anderson's work demonstrates remarkable maturity, noted one review. These are not merely beautiful images, but visual explorations of human resilience and reinvention. The financial aspect of my life had stabilized into comfortable management. With Samantha's guidance, I had established a sustainable structure that preserved principal while generating more than enough income for my needs and philanthropic interests. The novelty of wealth had faded, replaced by thoughtful stewardship and intentional impact. "You have avoided the typical lottery winner pitfalls," Samantha observed during our annual review. "Your net worth has actually increased despite significant charitable giving." Daniel and I had moved into a renovated brownstone in Brooklyn, combining our living spaces after 18 months together. The decision came naturally, our relationship having grown into something we both recognized as lifelong. The home we created together balanced luxury with purpose, comfortable without being ostentatious. "What I love about this place," Daniel remarked as we arranged his children's book illustrations alongside my paintings, "is that it feels like us, not like a lottery winner's showcase." That comment captured what I had strived for throughout my journey with sudden wealth: authenticity rather than display, purpose rather than indulgence, connection rather than isolation. On the exact 1-year anniversary of being kicked out, I established the Anderson Artistic Freedom Fund, a substantial endowment dedicated to supporting artists facing financial hardship or family rejection due to their creative pursuits. The fund would provide emergency housing, studio space, materials, and mentorship for those who found themselves in situations similar to mine before the lottery. "This completes the circle," I explained to Daniel as we finalized the paperwork, taking what began as rejection and transforming it into support for others. Looking back on the extraordinary year, I could now see how losing everything had paradoxically set me free. Being forced out of my parents' house, painful as it was in the moment, had broken patterns of dependence and disapproval that might otherwise have continued indefinitely. The lottery win, while purely chance, had arrived precisely when I needed both material resources and a psychological fresh start. The greatest wealth I had gained was not financial but internal. The unshakable knowledge that my worth existed independently of others' approval or my bank balance. This certainty had transformed not only how I saw myself but how I moved through the world, making choices from confidence rather than fear. My parents had intended to teach me a harsh lesson about failure when they put my belongings in that suitcase. Instead, they had unknowingly set in motion a journey toward authentic success and self-discovery. The universe's timing had been impeccable, though not in the way anyone could have predicted. 1 year later, I was not simply a lottery winner, but a gallery owner, mentor, philanthropist, artist, and woman who finally understood her own value. The suitcase that had seemed to represent loss had actually contained everything I needed to begin again on my own terms. The greatest lesson was simple but profound. True wealth is not measured in dollars, but in self-knowledge, purpose, and the courage to live authentically. And that is something no one can give you or take away. Have you ever experienced a moment when something that initially seemed like the worst thing that could happen turned out to be a blessing in disguise? I would love to hear your stories in the comments below. And if this journey resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share with someone who might need to be reminded that sometimes our lowest moments can become unexpected turning points. Thank you for coming along on this journey with me. And remember that your true worth can never be determined by anyone but yourself.